Hello, hello. So I have my friend Grace Gebhart here today, and we're just going to talk a little bit about her story. I've known Grace since she was in her mama's tummy. Her parents are very special to me, but first I just want to read this scripture of why I'm even doing this, and that is Psalm 105, 1-5. Oh, give thanks unto the Lord, call upon his name. Make known his deeds among the people. Sing unto him, sing psalms unto him. Talk ye of all his wondrous works. Glory ye in his holy name. Let the heart of them rejoice that seek the Lord. Seek the Lord in his strength. Seek his face evermore. Remember his marvelous works that he hath done, his wonders and the judgments of his mouth. So we're going to remember the marvelous works he's done in Grace Gebhart's life. I was in OBGYN residency with Grace's dad, Leland Gebhart, and I always kid him if he says anything to me that he taught me everything I know, because in residency we're paired up with us first and third year or second and fourth year, and so I spent a lot of time paired up with him. He was like my man.
Lots of time.
And at that time, her mother, Marty, who is now a practicing nurse practitioner, she was a nurse in our OB receiving, like our OB emergency room. And I told Grace, like, when we were interns and we didn't know what to do, she was there evaluating patients and we were like clueless, and she would have all the charts lined up and say, okay, here's what you need to do. Do this for this one, this for this one, this for... And Marty saved me so many times. I'll never forget that. But anyway, they are very special to me, and I remember when Grace was born and Landon, Lily. But specifically, Grace has a story of a tragedy that happened to her, and we say she's a miracle that she's alive today.
Yes, very true.
And I told her I'd heard a lot of the story from her parents, but really wanted to let her talk and say what happened. So tell us what happened on September 13th, 2014.
Yes. So the 13th.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was involved in a ATV wreck. It happened about probably 45 minutes out of town. And I remember right when it happened, I was just immediately thrown in a car and driven straight to Jackson. And when I first got in the car, I was like, I'm okay, we're good. I mean, definitely something's wrong, but we're gonna figure it out. And probably about 5 minutes into the ride on the way here, I was like, we're not good. And I did
the longest 45 minutes of your life, huh?
Yes. We called my mom and we were like, hey, we've got a broken arm. We're coming in, where should we go? Mom was like, head to Baptist. Obviously my dad works here. They're like, all right, we're on the way to Baptist. And shortly after that call, I realized that I'm losing a lot of blood. And
you knew that your arm was not right in your leg.
Yes. So I knew that my arm and my leg weren't not right. It wasn't just a broken arm. I was like, we're dealing with a lot more. And I told Dr. Travel said this, but I remember looking at the Nissan plant when we were passing and thinking, I'm only at the Nissan plant. And I remember sitting there thinking, I'm not gonna make it. I don't think I can make it to Jackson, if I'm only at the Nissan plant. But thank goodness we made it. Got here. My mom was waiting on the street in the middle of the road, flagging us down, pull into the emergency room, and she kind of looked in the back of the car and saw me, and immediately just the color drained from her face. And she was like, oh my goodness. She's like, go on up there. We pull in, and my dad was waiting at the emergency room. And I remember my mom calling up to him saying, it's trauma. This is a trauma.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing my dad kind of looking around at everyone like, trauma?
Right.
And my mom was like, trauma.
Yeah.
And pull in, and my dad was sitting there with a wheelchair. I was like,
No.
stretcher. I can't get in a wheelchair.
No way.
And so they all came out there with the stretcher, and I remember them opening the door, and my dad was standing there with some nurses and the emergency room people, and I remember all of them just staring at me and like all the color draining from all their faces, and I was just like, I don't know what to do. And that my dad grabbed me, pulled me, put me on the stretcher, and I remember going into the room and just everyone kind of looking at each other
like this is not good.
yeah, like what
And what do we do? What's the medical term for what you had?
Yes, so I had a open compound fracture, and the doctor described it as that my bone had shattered into over 1 million pieces. And for those who aren't medical, basically my bone had also come out of my arm in 2 places. So, and then for my leg, I didn't have, thank goodness it wasn't broken, but I didn't have any skin really from below my knee to the bottom of my ankle. Everything had just been, just off.
So what happened next?
Yes, so my dad basically started calling everyone he knew, saying, please, y'all gotta come in and help. So he called Dr. Penny Lawin and Dr. Ramsey, and they came in, and Dr. Ramsey did my arm surgery, and Dr. Lawin did my leg. And I remember before we went into surgery, my mom had to sign a consent form that if they are unable to save my arm, that she would allow them to amputate. And I remember going in, they weren't like, you're gonna be okay, you're gonna be okay. It was, we're gonna do everything we can. And I remember like grabbed one of the nurses. I was like, y'all have got this. I know y'all have got this. Like, come on.
I'm cheering you on.
I'm cheering y'all on. Like, I believe in you. I know. So, and right after my mom had signed the consent form, she went into the family waiting room, and one of the first people out there was my youth pastor, Bill Blair, from Christ United. And it was like 5 in the morning, and he was just sitting there waiting. And I just think about that all the time, and how my mom and dad were all alone, and they walked out there and saw him. So it definitely was a tough night and a tough journey, because then I was in the hospital for about 3 weeks, 2 weeks in the SOCU, 1 I got moved to a regular floor. But my first few days in the ICU, I was like, I'm fine. Like, I'm good. Like, I've got this. Like, and so friends from school were like, we want to come. And I was like, oh, I want to see everyone. Like,
and you were in what grade in school?
10th. I was in 10th grade, so I was 15.
15-year-old girl in the middle of school.
Yes. Like, I want to see everyone. Like, tell everyone to come. Like, everyone come and see me or whatever. So people were coming in and out all day, and I was like, y'all, thanks so much. Like, trying to entertain everyone.
Everybody in the ICU.
Yes, I'm trying to entertain. I'm fine. I'm good. And I remember a turning point for me was I had a ton of girls in there, and they were all visiting with me, and I was like, oh, y'all are so sweet for coming. And I was like, hey, 1 second. And Dr. Golden was in there. I said, hey, Dr. Golden, can you grab a pan over there? And he grabbed it and brought it over to me. And I remember I just threw up everywhere. And all the girls were like, and I was like, I'm so sorry. And after that, my parents were like, hey, like, I think we need to shut down the visitors. And
teenage girls in the ICU.
In the ICU, it just wasn't good. But shortly after that is kind of where things took a left turn, and I started getting really sick. So
until, like, give me that string of, I had this,
yes. So I had 4 blood transfusions. I went into kidney failure. My lung collapsed. I had to get a chest tube. Tons of other little things. I had, I think, maybe 10 doctors, all on different parts of my body, like trying to figure everything out. I had to get a central line put in. it was just, I felt like it was just one thing after the next, and I would think I was getting okay, and then I remember when they came in with the x-ray, and they x-rayed my chest, and I remember immediately getting taken downstairs to get my chest tube put in, and I like remember just getting rolled down there, and them all having to do it, and then being like, we're sorry. I was like, it's okay. Yeah, so it definitely was hard.
And all during this time, obviously, 3 weeks in the hospital, you're missing out on school and 10th grade stuff, and obviously you're kind of shut away from friends at that time, which is a core time for a teenage girl.
For a 10th grader.
And then when you finally did get to go home, what?
Yes, so
that was a special day.
Yeah, so the day I went home was actually homecoming at my school, and for me, you know, your first homecoming, everyone was freaking out about it, and I'd already been asked to the dance and everything before all this happened, and I remember I was going home around 9, which is when the pep rally was, and I remember my mom had gotten me this pretty red dress to go home in because I couldn't put on like anything else, obviously, because I was in a wheelchair. And I remember I had all the nurses helping me get in the car, my mom and my dad, and I remember I was getting in the car and I just threw up everywhere, and I was like, this is the worst day ever. Everyone's at school, everyone's at the homecoming pep rally, everyone's getting ready for the dance tonight, and I cannot even get in a vehicle without getting sick, having 6 people help me. It was just awful, and I remember just sitting there bawling, crying, and I hadn't really cried much. I'm tough. Like,
you were trying to show everybody you used to be tough.
I remember the first time I cried was when they were putting in my PICC line, because I had to leave the hospital with a PICC line in my arm, which is I guess for the non-medical people, you can do the term.
The IV, for her IV antibiotics that she's gonna have to do for how long?
I think I did it for 4 months.
4 months, and that was to prevent infection in your
ankle, in the leg, so
and
that we didn't have to have an amputation of the leg.
You just had that amputation hanging over you.
I know. I really didn't. I really tried not to think about it though. I just had confidence. I was like, we're gonna be good. I've got this. But yeah, I remember that was the first time I like really cried was when they were putting the PICC line in, and then when I was getting in the car to leave, and I was like, I can't do anything.
And then I was amazed to find out that 1 week later she went back to school.
Yes, so fast. They made me stay home for a week, which was good. That was good for me because I mean, even I had to move downstairs. I had to, you know, have all these medical equipment things brought into our guest room downstairs. I had to sleep right across from my parents.
Go into the bathroom.
Yes, I couldn't stand up and go to the bathroom by myself. I would have to call my parents.
Even going to school, you had to have friends help you to the bathroom and wheelchair around.
Yeah, I would have to have 3 girls, and then I couldn't move my arm.
And talk about the PICC line at school.
Yes, so I had a PICC line in my left arm, and I had to do IV treatments around the clock. And so every time I showed up at school, I would have like an IV hanging out just on my arm. And then
and the bad arm was your dominant arm.
Yes.
So she said I tried to do math with my left hand, and she has a PICC line in.
Yes.
I mean,
because
I had you did all that.
I had a severed nerve on my right arm, so I couldn't. My wrist was technically just paralyzed. It just didn't work. So I was trying to do math with my left hand.
Do you write? Are you ambidextrous now?
Not anymore, but I mean, and ambidextrous was a light term back then. I mean, everyone's kind of like, we can't really read this.
We can't read this.
We can't read it, but I mean, so
even trying to go to the bathroom. Your day at school was having friends wheel you from class to class with your IV antibiotics, and lunchtime your mom picking you up and taking you to therapy and try to do it. And you said
it was
couldn't focus.
No, going back to school was a light term. I basically put on a uniform and had friends wheel me from class to class, and I would go to sleep. I couldn't stay awake.
Wow, that's crazy.
So my teachers were really nice to just let me sit in there Like, and JA was just amazing. Like, I am still like in awe of everything they did for me. It was just amazing.
You said teachers even came to your house
Oh, yes.
to try to help you.
Teachers were coming to my house trying to help me. Like JA, I remember they would all come and like help me get out of my car. I mean, my brother would be wheeling me in, and all the teachers would, you know, just be like, "Oh, so glad you're back." And it's just such a special place, and they were just so great to me.
Sweet. And that reminds me about what happened in May, like the 2nd September, then May of that same school year. What happened?
Yes. So then May of 10th grade, I'm getting better. I'm not in the wheelchair anymore.
You're driving.
Yes. I had my permit, so I would try to drive around a little bit. And we were leaving a JA baseball game, and I was trying to drive us home and trying to turn the wheel. And I was like, I can't even turn the wheel. And my mom was like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "My arm's killing me." So we came back, did an x-ray, and we found out that my bone had not even healed together. So I basically had a broken arm that was being held together by a plate and some screws. So then I was referred to Dr. Graves at UMC, and we had to have an entire reconstruction, surgery part 2, and we had to take a bone graft from my femur.
Wow. Another big surgery.
Yes. And I was admitted, and
And that was, you said you missed out, like, you remember mile markers that you missed, and that was a big
Young Life Camp.
Young Life Camp.
My entire grade went to Young Life Camp.
For people that don't know what Young Life is.
Yes, so Young Life is a Christian, I guess, youth group that we do once a week. You meet and we play games and talk about God. And the big event for Young Life is at the end of the school year. You get to go to Young Life Camp. And you know, it's in different locations around the country, and it's just really fun.
You were looking forward
and
to
I was
it.
so excited about it because my whole grade was going. And I remember begging the doctor, like, "I promise I'll go and I'll sit there. Like, I won't do anything. Like, I won't even I won't get on a slide. Like, I won't do a ropes course, I promise." And he was like, "This is emergency."
Right.
And so
and
that was
like
hard.
that you missed out on because of this accident. What else can you think of that you missed out on or had to change to something else?
Yeah, I mean, I remember in 10th grade I wasn't on the dance team, and I remember I was like, "Well, this is good. I've got all these, you know, friends who aren't on the dance team." And I remember at the end of 10th grade, a lot of those friends who weren't on the dance team all decided that they were going to try out. They're like, "Come on, like, just come do it with us." And I was like, I can't. And they all tried out, and they all made it, and I was so happy for them. I mean, like, and I loved watching them, but that was just sad that, you know, I was like, "Come do it with us."
Your
I was like,
limitations.
I know.
But you were a great show choir,
Yes.
great performer,
Love
and
show
singer,
choir.
and so a lot of joy from that.
For sure.
So a lot of what I'd ask Grace to share is not everybody goes through such a traumatic event in life,
and thank goodness. Thank goodness that they don't.
But what did God teach you, and how did He carry you through that?
I really feel like it taught me that even if you don't have, you know, some giant traumatic, life-altering event happen to you, there's still lots of things that people are going through behind closed doors. I mean, even when everyone was at the homecoming pep rally and I was leaving the hospital, I mean, not that no one was thinking of me, but I mean, like, life is moving on. And so, I mean, I just think now about, you know, people who are going through even little things behind closed doors that they're not really telling people about, or that they're not thinking is a big deal. But I've really tried to think about every little thing that people are going through, even if it's not a giant life-altering event, and
makes you more empathetic to people.
And that does matter.
You know where they've been, where they are. And she really is living this out, because, and it's so cool now. What with. You're with Young Life girls now.
Yes.
10th grade
10th grade girls in Young Life.
6th grade
And
girls
6th grade
at
girls
church.
at church. So I go from the 10th graders on Mondays at Young Life, and then I have the 6th graders on Wednesday at church. And it's so funny seeing them in completely different stages of life. But
do you find yourself, like she said, it's been 8 years later, looking at yourself and your friends, like through these 10th grade girls? What do you feel like your ministry is with them?
I think my ministry with them is just guiding them and letting them know that even, if you are struggling with something, it's okay. And I've really tried to get to know a lot of girls personally and help them walk through whatever they're going through, even if I can't relate to them specifically on that, because a lot of people can't relate with me on what's happened with me, and that's totally fine. So I've really tried to hone in on different girls and make sure that they're okay, even if what they're dealing with seems small to them, like it's big, and God cares about that, and I care about it too. And
that's so great. And what is your favorite scripture?
Yes, my favorite scripture is Hebrews 12:1, which says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders us and the sin that so easily entangles, and run with perseverance the race that God has set before us." And so I've really tried to make that my life motto, is running my race, even though for a short time I was in a wheelchair and I couldn't run my race. But that's what I loved about that verse is, I'm going to get through this and I'm going to keep on running. And I really think about the race is our entire life. And really throwing off everything that hinders, whether it be, something that happens in our life, something that we're struggling with, and just running for God.
Thank you, Grace. Thank you so much for this
well, you're the
time.
best.
I
Thank you
appreciate
for
it.
asking me.
All right.
So good.